Hi, I'm Gloria Strode and welcome to Straightforward. Today we're going to have a very informative conversation with our school board at large Vice Chair, Kia Chambers. Welcome, Kia.
Thank you. Hello, how are you, Ms.
I am
Strode?
well. Well, you have been on a journey. You've kind of traveled the world working on an educational project and
Yes.
made it back home safely, and we're very, very happy that you did.
Absolutely.
I want you to share with our audience, for those that might not be familiar with you, how you went from being an educator to being the vice chair of the Muscogee County School Board.
Mm-hmm. Well, it started, I guess, with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is a educator. She served 42 years in education, and she had a love and a passion just for teaching kids and learning herself and for education. So I went into education as well, following her example, and I taught first grade and third grade and went into gifted education as a classroom teacher.
Here in Muscogee County?
Here in Muscogee County.
And where was your first assignment?
My first assignment was at Hannon Academy.
Really? And that's over in off Tobbleton Road, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's in one of the communities it's an older community.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was right across from or adjacent to Peabody Apartments.
Right.
That's been torn down now, but my students walked to school from Peabody Apartments.
Which is public housing.
Public housing.
Right,
yes,
and
ma'am.
so that was really a very unique place.
Yes, it was.
In terms of starting your career.
Absolutely.
And you are a graduate of the Albany State University.
Absolutely,
And
Golden
so,
Ram.
yes, and so you were leaving Albany State and then coming back home, and that was the first assignment.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Well, in between that time, I was a pre-med major at Albany State. Okay. So switched gears and went into education. So I went to Troy State and got my master's and my specialist degree in education.
Okay.
And I started to teach.
All right.
So that was my first teaching assignment.
So you were
Yes.
well prepared when you got to
Absolutely.
Hannah, and you knew how to address the issues that came with students that came from public housing.
I was actually well prepared from an educational perspective, but my kids taught me more than I ever could have learned in a classroom.
Really?
They taught me about the area, they taught me about their needs, and they taught me about the importance of education in the lives of children.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
I learned a lot from them. I learned more from them than probably they learned from me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And so just being at Hannah, and you worked with the gifted students.
Yes.
So some people in the community might not be aware that because of where that school is located, that they actually had a gifted program.
Yes. Now, Hannon Academy at the time was a school within a school, and it was just beginning the gifted program. So I worked in both. So I worked with the kids that have walked to school from the housing project, and I also worked with the kids that were in the state identified gifted classroom.
Right.
So I've worked with kids from all over the spectrum and from all grade levels.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. And so you moved from there.
Yes.
And then you became the state coach.
I became the academic coach for the school, and I've served in various capacities at the school because I love to learn myself.
Right.
So I was the chair of the leadership team and the student support team. Okay, so I dealt with all the children in the building.
Okay. So not just your little group,
Absolutely.
but all the students.
All the children in the building, because if there was ever a kid with an issue or a special ed or IEP to be written, they came through the SST
Now, what
team.
is IEP and what is SS?
SST is the student support team, and an IEP is an individualized educational plan.
Okay.
Okay.
So you were very familiar with all of that
Yes, ma'am.
before you decided to throw your hat into the
Yes.
ring and serve at a different level.
Yes. So fast forward, after I left Muscogee County, I went into working with student teachers at Columbus State University, and of course I'm in real estate for a profession. But there's always been this pull to towards education.
Right.
So I had probably a lapse of a year not being in education
Right.
before I threw my hat in the ring to go back into education, just in a different arena.
A different capacity
Yes,
where
ma'am.
you could use everything that you learned and serve the children and their families
On a
to,
different
on a
level.
different level, and to help try to move them through the school system.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our first break, to our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Chalk by Quincy, introduces Excellence Redefined, timepieces of the finest technology, luxury, and class with tons of style at chalklifestyle.com. Renal Associates, LLC, a team of physicians dedicated to excellent kidney care with 5 convenient locations to serve you. Stark Avenue, Columbus, Bradley Park, Columbus, Lafayette Parkway, LaGrange, East Burkhalter Avenue, Buena Vista, and Springs Street in Warm Springs. Thai Cuisine, the area's only authentic Thai restaurant. Open for lunch and dinner, Monday through Saturday, located in the Village Green Shopping Center on the 280 bypass in Phoenix City.
Walmart's reason for supporting Thurgood Marshall College Fund is simple. We like to win. And we have been given a lot of exposure to some incredible talent. And we also believe that it's a part of our responsibility to the community to give back. This is a great opportunity to do both. It's been a wonderful experience for us through the years. We've appreciated our partnership. We believe in return on investment, and we have definitely had a remarkable return.
And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with the Vice Chair of Muscogee County School Board, Kia Chambers. Well, Kia, you added to our community as a teacher in the public schools. Then you went over to CSU to help train the student teachers. And then you decided to throw your hat in the ring and become a public servant in a different capacity.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a very brave decision, but we are thankful that you did that. So how long have you been elected? You are our citywide representative.
Yes.
And share with our audience what that was like.
Well, running a citywide race is an experience like no other. There are a lot of people in Columbus, Georgia,
Yes,
and
it
you
is.
don't realize that until you're in the neighborhoods going door to door.
Yes.
But it was the greatest experience that I have experienced thus far because I got to meet some amazing people who were willing to share some amazing stories with me. And it just gave me a bigger heart for the people and a bigger heart for making an impact. And I
Right.
think that's what we're all here for.
And it's about families and their children.
Absolutely.
And I know you found this out because at one point we were out walking with you. It was a very
Absolutely.
cold day.
Absolutely.
And you ran into some of your former parents.
Yes.
You know, that you had their children were in your class.
Absolutely.
What we find is we really have more in common than not when it comes to parents and their children,
Absolutely.
regardless of their social and economic standing. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree. Everyone wants to make sure that their child does well, better than them, and they want to make sure that their child has a secure future. And I think part of being a public servant is to make sure, one, that we listen to the people, find out what their needs are, and work with them to better our community. Because the people are the center. They are the center of a great community, and we have great people here in Columbus, Georgia.
Right. And it needs to be all inclusive.
Oh, yes.
Where we're really not leaving. I know this is cliche, no one is left behind. But what we find is in my old life as a social worker for 30 years, whether it was a family where both parents made minimum wage, or if it was some military family or corporate family, at the end of the day, parents really want what's best for their children.
Absolutely.
Some have more time to put in than others, because if you're working, you know, of course, you are entrepreneur and your schedule is a little more flexible. You can get off and go to visit your children at school, whereas some people who work different types of jobs, industry, hospital, it's not always that flexible.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that the parents are not concerned.
Absolutely.
Right.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's where that community conversation piece comes into play. I may not be able to see your point, or see your perspective until I understand your story.
Exactly.
And so going door to door, talking to people, having a frank conversation is what gets you to the point where you understand enough to help make a difference.
Exactly. And that's what they would say, until you walk a mile in my shoes.
Absolutely.
There are some companies where if people are absent, they get points. After you get so many points, you can be terminated. We do live in an employment at will state, you know, so it's a very different kind of thing, you know. And sometimes we get very comfortable in our own world to where we don't understand what's going on in somebody else's world. And I know that I said this to you when you were running. We assume because we have cable and internet that all families have cable and internet. Well, cable and internet is a luxury.
Absolutely.
And so if you're having minimum wage jobs and you have to pay rent, utilities, and you need a car and car insurance, you might not have internet.
Absolutely.
You know, and so those are the kinds of things, of course, you learn that. You knew that from being at Hannah.
Absolutely.
But then you got reminded that not just in public housing, but in other parts of the city, there were some families that their income did not allow them to have a lot of the extras.
Right. And the good thing about being in education is the key to upward mobility.
Yes.
So when you have a section of people who will not receive a good education, then you're probably going to have a segment of people who also have the lower paying jobs.
Right.
So if you can get those people to understand the importance of education and give them the assistance and the tools and the environment they need to be successful, then you're not only helping the educational system, but you're helping ultimately the economic system.
Exactly.
So
and it
they're
all
related.
it ties in together, because
Absolutely.
those that they drop out or stop out,
Absolutely.
they will make less, you know, and we don't want people over in the pool that have to rely on the public assistance. We want to move
Absolutely.
as many people forward as we can.
Absolutely. You
Right.
want productive citizens, because then we're all paying into the tax base and
Right.
everything like that. But it's a partnership. It's like that old saying, we're only as strong as our weakest link. So you can't leave the weak link behind. And not saying that there is a weak link, not that correlation, but the fact
Right.
that you mentioned earlier that you have to be inclusive of all people.
Exactly.
Is the point I'm trying to make.
Right, and we have to meet people where
Where
they
they
are,
are.
and then try to help them
Absolutely.
to develop a plan that will move them along.
Right, and I think that's all of our responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And so through your work,
Yes.
and we've had a lot of things going on in the system since you've been on board.
Sure.
You were one of the biggest supporters of this community advisory council or board or whatever that term is. How did we come to that?
Well, there was a lot of concern around alternative education. And when we outsource a lot of things in Muscogee County, but when we start outsourcing the educational part, that gave pause to a lot of people in a lot of different segments, and there was a public outcry, a
Right.
strong public outcry that I heard. And so I just wanted to listen. To listen to the community. These are all of our children.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that everyone feels a part of the decision making for their child.
Right, or their grandchildren.
Or grandchildren.
Because we have grandparents raising
Absolutely.
grandchildren.
Absolutely. So the idea behind the advisory committee was just, let's hear from the public, because that conversation piece, that same thing, going door to door and learning a lot from the community as far as what needs are, it's the same thing that we can get out of having something like an advisory committee.
Right, because it's a makeup of people from all walks of life.
Right, and from different perspectives. We don't have to have the same perspective, but I have to at least have an open ear so that I can listen to what you've seen from your perspective. As we talked about earlier,
Right.
if I'm not living in that situation, I may not be able to understand it.
Right.
But if we're able to come to the table, have an open conversation and communicate, then we find out some things.
Right.
Along the journey of deciding what we were going to do as a board, a lot of the board members, we went out into the community, talked to people, And what we found is there are some programs here in Muscogee County that need some extra support and some extra things in order to be successful. And so the committee, some of the same people that are on the committee brought those things out.
Right.
So the purpose of the committee is not to make a decision.
No.
The purpose of the committee is to listen to the constituents and to listen to the public with their concerns.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a great thing, and I think for both sides.
I think
it's going to be a great thing.
Because communication is the key.
Key.
To anything.
Key.
Right.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is take our final break, go to our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Okay. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Warrior Outreach. Contact Command Sergeant Major Retired Sam Rhodes or Kathy Rhodes. Freedom Printing for all of your designer printing needs. Gunboat Plaza, Suite 18. Zeal in Uptown Columbus, where you can enjoy an intimate dinner atmosphere, and every entree is chef-inspired with passion. Dinner is served Monday through Saturday, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Howard Johnson Hotel, 1011 Veterans Parkway, Columbus. For an international dinner experience you will never forget. Zeal in Uptown Columbus. Progressive Funeral Home, family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided. A touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road. Trusted by generations. Best Care, transforming minds and bodies, leading the way in the latest techniques of medical weight loss and wellness. Certified in family medicine and bariatrics, Dr. Blunt is ready to assist in the transformation of your mind and body. Call today, 706-221-6477, or visit bestcarecolumbus.com. East Alabama Endocrinology, educating and caring for those living with diabetes in Alabama and Georgia. 1400 Bradley Lake Boulevard, 3320 Skyway Drive, Suite 602, Opelika. Take charge of diabetes and live your best life.
History is important because it shows where you're coming from and where you're going. Type 2 diabetes is something that runs in my family, which means I'm at risk. In fact, 1 in 3 American adults are at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And knowing this, if I do nothing, that family history becomes my family's future. And my family is too important to me for that. Take the risk factor assessment today at AskScreenKnow.com.
Walmart's reason for supporting Thurgood Marshall College Fund is simple. We like to win. And we have been given a lot of exposure to some incredible talent. And we also believe that it's a part of our responsibility to the community to give back. This is a great opportunity to do both. It's been a wonderful experience for us through the years. We've appreciated our partnership. We believe in return on investment, and we have definitely had a remarkable return.
Welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with the Vice Chair of the Muscogee County School Board, Kia Chambers.
Yes.
Kia, we have the community, is it Community Advisory Board or?
Not board, but it's a committee.
Committee,
Yes,
Community
ma'am.
Advisory Committee. Want to make sure we get that right. But I would like for you to share with our viewers, what is the makeup? Who's on this board? Because I know there's been a lot of conversation back and forth on social media. I know you're aware of that. A lot of people have shown up to school board meetings. You all did vote to put this in place, so all of that has happened. So what's the makeup of the board?
Okay, well,
of the committee.
I won't start naming names, because if I start naming names, I'll forget someone.
Exactly, someone will be offended, their feelings will be hurt.
Absolutely,
right.
And we don't want to, this is an inclusive type thing. But each board member was allowed to submit a name, and then there were also some names of just people who had been involved in gathering that information. They were actually forming their own little groups.
In the community.
In the community.
And these are resource people.
Absolutely,
right.
Resource people. So we sort of just brought them in and put them on the committee. And of course the the board voted last night, as a matter of fact, and approved the list and approved the formation of the committee.
Okay.
And so that committee will meet over the next few months and hopefully gather some information and come back with some, you know, recommendations.
Right.
And they'll share that with the public, with the board.
No secrets.
Right. No
Everything is
secrets.
transparent.
Yes. Absolutely.
But each board member selected a person to be a part of the committee.
Yes.
And then you had resources like individuals from DFACS
Yes.
and people that work with other social service organizations,
Absolutely.
retired educators,
Absolutely.
Advocates for special needs,
And parents.
and
Yes.
parents as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
it's a
Because
mix.
what we were first looking at, that was all the controversy is, and you always said there was a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
Your concern was not just the therapeutic day
school,
day
yes,
school,
ma'am.
but we needed to look more at what was happening with those that were behind on credits, as well as
Right.
the other
Overage,
behavior.
underaccredited.
Right.
We were looking at three populations of students: the overage, underaccredited, the students who had special needs and
Right.
needed therapeutic services, and then students from the AIM Center or alternative school.
Right.
And so, not to rehash the situation, but I think the superintendent did a good job of identifying that we have to do something for these
Right.
students.
That there is a problem.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So now, as a community, along with the administration, along with the board, we have to come up with a solution. No one's saying there's not a problem.
Right.
I think the superintendent did an excellent job of identifying that, hey, we could do better in these areas.
Right.
And so what we have to do now is move forward 100% on finding a solution
And resources.
for each group.
Because the needs are very different.
The needs are very
Right,
different.
because
That's
the
the point I was about to
therapeutic
make.
day students, many of them can't really communicate.
Well, it's different ranges.
levels,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Because it might be what their exceptionality is. I mean, I'm not an educator or a
Right, right,
therapist,
right.
but I do know there are different levels there. There are also different levels for those that might not even have enough credits.
Right.
You see what I'm
Right.
saying? We have kids that move 5, 6, 8 times a
Right.
year, and that's because their families are very transient. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not bright. It's just that they've had excessive absenteeism. That's something that's a little different than someone that might be a slow learner. So my point is, one size don't fit all.
Right.
Right.
And that was my reservation for having one program for three very distinctly different students. And so, but again, going back to, we realize there's a problem.
Right.
Let's engage the community so that we're clear on what those concerns and what the problems are, and where the gaps are also
Right.
in services and needs, and then move forward with making sure that we provide the best education possible for all children.
For all children, because I'm one that believes that all children can learn.
Absolutely.
I worked at Marshall Middle School with the federal education grant, and there were children from 5 public housing projects. But a lot of those kids were very brilliant.
Absolutely.
They just had social issues that needed to be addressed so that they could focus on the academics. And so that was the thing that I, had to just say. I was like, yeah, well, they're behind on credits. Well, if you moved 8 times in 1 year, and that's not to put parents
Right.
down, because people survive how they have to, well, then you might be behind too, know. And so that was why the one size fits all. But we're going to be looking at the community solutions, other options, and community resources. Because I know New Horizons years ago, which I don't know if they still do it, they had a program where they would come to Marshall and Baker and some of the others, and some of the children that had emotional issues, then they could help assist with that.
Well, seeking out those things and those resources, and again, just having a community conversation over the next few months, I think is going to help bring out a lot of things so that we can move forward and make sure that we're providing what is needed. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I've been doing some traveling.
Right.
And so I've been in Australia for the last 21 days. And I had an opportunity to visit a lot of different schools. or our group did, because we
Right.
split up and went to different places. And
let me just put this in.
Yes.
This was not funded by Muscogee County
Oh,
School
no,
District.
no.
This is a part of your PhD program over at
Absolutely.
Auburn University.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
this did
ma'am.
not cost the
No.
taxpayers any
Any
money.
money.
I want to make
No.
sure that we say that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So on this trip,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I did learn or the thing that impressed me the most, is how they have created a program
Mm-hmm.
for a certain group of students
Mm-hmm.
that need extra support.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of, I learned a lot from that trip. Of course, I've already said I love education, so
Yes.
that's why I'm working on my
Yes.
PhD. I just want to learn more. But this particular trip has helped me a lot as far as just learning what's out there and what's available for working with different groups of
Right.
students.
And sometimes we have to, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, we have to leave our own backyard.
Absolutely.
You know, and then
Absolutely.
sometimes you have to leave to see something different.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't always mean that what you have is not good.
no.
But we always can be better.
Right.
And when we ever get to a point where we can't learn anymore and we can't
Absolutely.
improve, then we are in trouble, because we all can grow. I mean, even at my
Absolutely.
age, I can still learn something.
Well,
daily.
let me tell you, I am a product of Muscogee County. I have been
And you
in
graduated
various-
from
Hardaway
Hardaway High School.
Hawks.
Okay.
So I have been in multiple facets in the Muscogee County School District, and I have seen great programs come through Muscogee County. I've been a part of some great initiatives when I worked in Muscogee County, and I think we're doing some great things right now in
Right.
Muscogee County. But the common thread is we continue to strive for excellence,
Right.
continue to get better,
Right.
and if we work together and communicate, we may not see eye to eye on every issue,
Right.
but if we keep at the center that everything we do is for the kids,
Exactly.
and it's all about them, and we don't let other things
Get in the way.
involved.
Let's keep the main thing the
Absolutely.
main thing.
Absolutely.
And then we can ensure that all of our children will
Absolutely.
be as successful as they can be. Well, I thank you so much for coming. I'm excited about this new adventure. The community is going to be involved, the parents, and of course with the great leadership, then I think that we can get everything taken care of. I really do. All right. Well, thank you
for
so much.
having me.
Oh, yes,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
My pleasure. This has been Straightforward. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.